Hello, my name is Keith Rucker. So today we got a little woodworking project again, and this is something that I debated on whether even to shoot a video on it, but I said what the heck, you guys may enjoy seeing this. So my wife asked me about a week ago, actually she was contacted by some friends of ours who have a daughter who's about to be getting married here in a couple of weeks. And evidently the latest little thing at weddings these days is to have what they call a wedding bench, which at the reception they put out, and all the people who come to the reception sign the bench with a little Sharpie pen, and then they seal it over with some polyurethane or something, and it's a little memento of their wedding day. Cute idea. So anyway, the family, again, they're friends of ours, longtime friends of ours, and knowing that I do a lot of shop work and woodworking and what have you, they asked me if I would build them a bench to use for this wedding bench for their daughter's reception. And my wife's been on my case the last week or two, so I'm going to go ahead and try to get this knocked out. It should be a fairly simple woodworking project, nothing too difficult at all. So anyway, I went by and picked up some lumber. We're just going to make this out of some pine. Nothing, again, real fancy here. It's probably just going to be painted white. We're not going to put any high dollar wood into it. But we got the wood here ready to go, and we're going to get started making this bench. We're going to start out by making the legs on this thing, and the legs are going to be 18 inches high, and I got a piece of 2x12. It's a little bit thicker than what I really want. I want it to be thicker than I could get out of a 1x12, but the 2x12 is a little bit just heavier than what I really want it to be. Plus this board that I've got here has got just a little bit of cup in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this through the planer, kind of clean it up, and get it down to the thickness I want, which is probably going to be about 1.25 inches thick. So we'll fire this up. This is a Powermatic, I think a 20-inch planer, something like that. So let's get this rolling. All right, we need 2 pieces of this. They're 18 inches long. So all right, these will become the legs. I want to cut a little something like that out on the bottom. I'll have to lay that out. All right, so we've got the little arch there laid out on the bottom, and we're just going to cut this out on the bandsaw. Now we'll sand out this inside on the drum sander. All right, we'll use this as a template, lay out the other one, and repeat. All right, so the next thing I want to do here is we're going to have a little apron run across the front of the bench here, and it'll go across the front of the legs. But what I want to do is I want to actually notch out the legs so that this runner fits into it rather than being on top of it. So we're just going to notch this out. Let's see, where did my pencil go? Here it is. Y'all like my pink pencil? So the board is 5.5 inches down, It's a 1x6, but of course a 1x6 isn't 6 inches wide. It's 5.5, and it should be 3/4 inches, and it is. So 3/4, 3/4, and we'll just connect the dots. And I'll do that on both sides. All right, now I'm gonna go cut those out back on the bandsaw again. So I have my wife Julie out here with me. This is a present from both of us. She decided to come out and help me today. So she's doing the sanding and I'm doing the cutting. So I'm gonna let her do this. So the top of the bench here is gonna be made out of this piece of 1x12, just some pine shelving board. Had to look really hard to find a good clear piece. Can't hardly find decent lumber anymore. But we're gonna cut this 4 foot long. So, whoops. Right there. So next I got my 1x6s here that will be the skirts that will go on the front of this. And I've laid them on the bench here on the table, and I've taken the top and butted it up against the back. Now I could use my tape measure and measure 4 foot, but an old trick that a carpenter taught me years ago was that when possible, actually use a reference piece to cut with rather than trying to measure with a tape measure. You'll get much more accurate cuts. Back in the old days, the old-time carpenters, many of them didn't even have a true ruler. They would build everything with what they call a story stick. And they would go make a measurement, mark it on a stick, and then transfer that measurement over. And if you think about it, for at least woodworking, you're always going to get that exact measurement that you need. Now, very often those parts were built one piece at a time, and it didn't have to be interchangeable parts or what have you, where they were making a bunch of them and putting them together. They were building a piece to fit. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now, is I'm building a piece to fit. So yeah, I could use my tape measure, but I'm just going to mark this using the piece that I cut on the top. And now I know that when I cut these off, it'll be the exact same length as the top. So these are the skirts, and I just want to put a little 45 chamfer down here on the bottom of this, just so it's not too square looking. And we're going to come up about 2.5 inches from the bottom, and mark this right here. Alright, so now we're ready to start assembling the bench together, and what I've done here is just what I call a dry assembly. I've laid out all my parts. So I've got my legs in here, and I went ahead and laid them on top of the apron be on the back. I put the apron on the front. I've come in here and I've measured to make sure that everything's sticking out the same. So I'm sticking out about 3 inches on the ends down here. And I've also have got a spacer, and this is 2x4. And it's in here, and I'm going to actually put it in the center to give this some stability. But right now I've just got it laid in there to use as a reference for putting all this together. So I'm just right there ready to put it on, but what I'm going to do first is I'm going to put a little bit of glue in here. Some glue will really help hold this thing together. So guys, you know, this is some Titebond 3 Ultimate Wood Glue, and here's some good old-fashioned Elmer's white glue. It really doesn't matter what you use. Either one of these, you know, you can spend extra money on wood glue. Quite honestly, most of the time in the wood shop, I just use regular old white glue. It's the exact same thing. The only difference between most wood glues and white glue is they put something in here to make it dry faster, because it's more of a carpenter's glue, and they want it set up quicker. And also they put a little yellow stain in here to make it look more like wood when it dries. Quite honestly, when I'm woodworking, I would rather have a little bit more setup time. I'm not worried about it drying in 10 minutes. I'd rather have a little more open time that I can fool around with things and then set it aside and let it dry overnight. And also, when it dries, white glue dries clear. And if you get a glue joint in there showing, if you use yellow glue, it can be very unsightly and hard to cover up with a stain. So I'm using just plain old white Elmer's glue here. And I'm just going to come in here. We're going to put a little bit of glue right here on this lap joint. I like to spread it around a little bit. I'm going to take my finger here in just a minute and do that. You don't need to get carried away with the glue. If you put too much in here, it's just going to squeeze out and make a mess. But you do want to have a nice, good layer. It's not necessary to coat both sides. Some people say it is. If you got a good coat in there, you should be fine. And I'm happy with that. And we'll just put our board back in place. Double check my measurements. And now we're going to screw it down, and I'm using a you can get these in any home improvement store, but it's just a little drill with a countersink in there that matches the profile on your bottom of your screw. And I really like using a pilot hole when I screw these in, because it won't split the wood as bad. And I'm just going to come in here and right there in the center of that piece of wood, and I'm going to go ahead and run this down so that that countersink is below the surface, because we're going to hide these screw holes here in a little bit, and I'll show you how I do that. So that's the nice thing about this little jig here, is that it will automatically create a little spot there for that piece of that plug that I'm going to put in here. That needs to be just a little bit deeper. There we go. Now we'll run our wood screws down. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, so that side's done. We're going to just flip everything over and repeat the other side. Alright, so before I put the next apron on, I actually want to go ahead and put the cross brace in. And the reason is that this is just going to give you some extra stability. The aprons are made out of 1x material. This is a 2x4. It runs right down the center of the bench. And really, this is going to carry most of the weight on here. But it's going to be hidden from view. It'll be up underneath it. It's shorter than the apron, so that it'll be out of sight once it's laying on the ground. But this is just going to go in the very center. But what I want to do is, I've already cut this to length, and I want to make sure that these are good and tight up against that. So it's better for me to go ahead and put it in there now And then when I screw that front apron down, everything's going to be perfectly fitting. So I've already kind of got this centered up in here. It's what did I say, 4 7/8. And I'm going to make a mark right in the center, about 4 7/8 on the back side of this, so I know where to drill my screws. And I know that this 2x4, let's see, it is about that high. And we can sand these marks off, so I've just got 2 holes there that I'm going to put in here, 2 screw marks, and that should go right into the center of the 2x4. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. And using the same setup, we'll pre-drill these and then put some screws in. You may have noticed I didn't put glue on this, and the reason is that glue on the end grain is a very weak joint. It wouldn't hurt to put it on there, but it's really not going to give you any extra stability, so I'm just not going to bother even doing it. Alright, so now this is very stable, and we're ready to put the other apron on the front here, and everything should be a perfect fit. So now it's starting to look like a bench, and what I've done here is I've just put a line roughly down the center of these 2x12s up underneath here, and I'm just going to lightly scribe a center line through here, and this is going to give me a guideline for my screw holes. And same thing, I want to put a few down the center of that 2x4 that's running through here, and so I'm just going to find the center here, and use a piece of wood as a straight edge. I'm just lightly doing this with a pencil because we want to sand that mark off later. We're not trying to mark it real heavy where it has a permanent mark in there. But now I know where I need to put my screws in here to screw this down and hit the wood. We'll put some nails along the front edge, some finish nails. We won't screw it to this piece, but we'll only screw it to the thicker 2x stock. And I just line this up where it needs to be on both sides. And I'll start with a single screw in this corner. And then I'm going to go to the back corner and make sure everything's lined up, and I'll put this one in back here, and then once those two are in, I can just go ahead and start drilling. Everything's where it just needs to be. And I'm just only going to put 3 along the outside edges. You don't want to put too many. And same thing, I'm going to put about 3. I'm going to roughly find the center. You won't be able to see these screw holes when we get through, so I'm not going to a lot of trouble to get them exactly in a certain spot. Just eyeballing it. Alright, so that's pretty much the bench, guys, but we're not quite through yet. I do want to go in here and put these finish nails in, and then we've got to plug all these screw holes where you won't be able to see them. So let me grab some finishing nails and we'll do that and then put the plugs in. Alright, we just got some finishing nails here, and so now we're going to cut the plugs to cover this up. Now, a lot of people will just use dowel rods, and I guess there's nothing really wrong with using a dowel. You can just put it in there and cut it off flush, glue the next one in, glue the next one in. But the problem that I don't like about dowel rods is that you will have the end grain showing instead of face grain, and everything else on there is going to be face grain. So what I've got here is what we call a plug cutter, and we're actually going to cut it out of the face of a board so that the grain matches. And these are very easy to cut. You just come in here and you see it leaves a little dowel in there, and we'll pop that out with a screwdriver. And I need about 24 of these for this project, so we'll just go through here and punch a bunch of them out. So now that we've got all these cut, and I cut a few extras because sometimes these will break, but I'm just going to come in here with a screwdriver, stick it down in there, and bend it back and forth, and out comes a plug. Alright, so now we're ready to start plugging the holes, and again, you know, this plug cutter actually cuts this at a slight taper, so you want to make sure you're putting the small side in, which will be the top side that we cut. And again, I'm just using white glue. You know, if you're painting this, it probably doesn't matter if you use yellow glue, but if you use yellow glue and you stain this, you'll get a yellow ring around there. And it doesn't look very good. If you use white glue, that ring doesn't show up as bad. So anyway, we're just going to take a little bit of glue, put around the bottom of this. It's not going to go the entire depth, so we don't need a whole lot. And we're just going to tap that in place, and we're going to leave those sitting up proud like that. And we'll come in here and cut them off in a minute. One other important thing is you want to make sure you line the grain up to match the grain in the part that you're putting this in. You want that grain to be running in the same direction. So just take a moment and look at that before you drive the plug in. All right, we've let this glue dry now for, I don't know, probably a little over an hour and a half or so. So these plugs are ready to cut off. And what I'm going to use is this little saw right here. And this is a flush cut saw is what it is. So it has teeth on both sides. One side's a little coarser than the other. But the interesting about this saw is that the teeth are only set going up. It's perfectly flat on the bottom. So you can slide this across a piece of wood and it will not scar the surface. All the teeth are moving up. So you can come in here and just basically come right in on the side of these plugs and saw them off flush with the top of the piece that you're working on. So we're just going to go through here and saw all these off, and then after that is done, we'll come in here with a sander. We'll sand the entire top, sand all these down just perfectly flush, and this piece will be done. So I think we got this job finished. One bench, and this will be going again to our friends who have a daughter getting married. And I want to thank my wife Julie for coming out and helping me in the shop today. And I think it turned out nice. So quick and easy project. Any of you dads marrying off a daughter and want to do something special for us, this will be an easy project to do. Doesn't require a lot of tools. Really doesn't require a lot of skill. This isn't really fine woodworking by any means, but just very functional and quick and dirty, but make something nice. I imagine they're going to paint this white or something for the wedding. We were just asked to build it, so I'm not doing any finishing work on this. We'll deliver this to them and let them figure out exactly how they want to do it. But I think the idea is they'll probably put their name and the date up here, and all the people at the reception will just sign it, and they'll have a nice little memento of their wedding.
I wish we had one.
I guess I could build you one.
But we're already married.
Yeah. Would you marry me again?
I suppose 20 years. 20 years ago.
I'll have to make you one.
Okay.
All right. Thank y'all.